Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's meeting of Cabinet. We are live and broadcasting. So, first item of business is the meeting protocol and the evacuation procedure. I believe everyone present knows what that is by now. In short, if the fire alarm goes off, please leave by the nearest exit and meet over at the bank opposite. Leads us on to apologies. There are none. All of Cabinet is present. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations beyond what is already printed on our agendas? No, I'm not seeing any. That leads us on to agenda item 4, which is the minutes. They have been printed and circulated. Is everyone happy that I sign them as a true and accurate record? Okay. That leads us on to item 5, which is public consultation. I'm aware of one speaker and one statement. So we have Mrs. Condical on agenda item 6 and a statement from Andrew Crichton on agenda item 7. I don't propose changing the order of the agenda items. So that moves us on to agenda item number 6 itself, which is the general fund revenue and capital budgets. Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Leader. I do not propose to speak at any sort of length on this tonight because I think the most appropriate forum for discussing the budget is the full council. And unfortunately for members, I have no time limit on at the council meeting itself on my speech. So what I will do is I will move the item as printed and say that this is the General Fund Budget and Capital Programme, and so that we're very proud of this programme. It facilitates regeneration. It balances the books in spite of a deficit of over £3 million. It revives our local economy and it restores civic pride. And we will be expanding on that on Monday. And it's only really for me to thank the financial officers, particularly Mr. Craig Pugh and Mr. Stephen Fitzgerald and the entire team for their absolutely sterling work on this under some very, very difficult circumstances. So I will move the report as printed, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Croft. And as Leader, I will second the draft budget. That leads us on to our public speaker, which is Michelle Condical.
Thank you. There are a few things I really needed some clarification on, and then a few things I would sort of comment on. 4.1, it says plus increased independent living wage. Is that meaning the real living wage as opposed to just government living wage? And also, I was a bit concerned, it says no, the following assumptions: no price inflation unless it is contractual or unavoidable. Well, with the levels of inflation we've got at the moment, I don't know sort of how that sort of ties in, because it seems that it's sort of going to be fairly inevitable that there's going to be inflation, at least within foreseeable future. On the 6.3, the find it. I've already lost it myself, sorry. About the homeless hostel. Sorry, I put 6.3 and I can't find it in my bit. Anyhow, I'll read. It says that it's with tenders exceeding the budget provision. Now, we seem to have an awful lot of council projects which, exceed the budget provision. I'm just wondering, how can we ensure that appropriate budgets are actually allowed for these things? Because it also mentioned that the sub-regional, MRF, that the spend profile has been revised, but it didn't say whether that was up or down or quite what was happening there. In 6.5, I was pleased to see that there's sort of Green Homes Phase 3, so obviously for more energy efficiency and things for low income. Obviously, a lot of people missed out last time because the money had to be returned because of the timescales and things. So I just wondered, can the council actually start promoting this now so that things can be started immediately the financial year starts, which I presume is when the funding is allowed to be started, because, you know, people just didn't know about it, you know, some of the time. So it's absolutely critical that we get, you know, everyone on that, particularly with the way bills are going up. In 6.6, it said the council has had a shortage of capital receipts for several years and continues to identify suitable surplus assets for potential disposal. Now, obviously, if stuff isn't being used, then disposal is, you know, appropriate. But I don't think that can be sort of made to be a regular thing, because there's only a certain amount of assets that you can actually get rid of and things. So I don't think actually we should be counting on capital receipts at all.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Condacall. We now move on to non-cabinet members. Any non-cabinet member wish to speak? Councillor Condacall.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things. Fundamentally, the promises in the Conservative budget was about the borough plan, and we're not advancing the borough plan at a reasonable speed. The council's pledges were also about parking, and we're increasing the 1, 2 or 3 hour parking rate to £1.50. I'm not a great fan of getting lots of people to drive into town, but I do want to keep the economy alive in the town, and having a one-size-fits-all of £1.50 I think doesn't give that flexibility for people wanting to pop in for a short trip. I understand we only have so many car parking spaces, which is why actually having a different charging regime, maybe at Harefield Road, which is underutilised, for 50p for half an hour, £1 for 2 hours, that sort of short hop thing at Harefield Road would actually give people an alternative, because I think about £1 for 2 hours is a nice sweet spot to make people pay £1.50. Then you're trying to convince people to stay in the Nuneaton Town Centre for 3 hours, which is fine on a nice day, but I think we should have been a bit smarter and have one car park at least at a lower rate. I'm also concerned about the £22,000 for increased legal investigation costs. We don't have, or didn't have, all this rubbish at the County Council. We had a lot of respect between councillors, and therefore this money didn't need to be burnt at the County Council. And I hope in future we can actually diffuse some of the tensions and have less investigations. And there's lots of other things in here. The fireworks and things are really, really important, and we haven't really discussed it at any length. I'm really pleased about some stuff, obviously. The economic development spending, we really need to kickstart that. To actually upping the staff and the additional resources for that is really good. I look forward to more detail, because a lot of these things are one-liners, and behind the one line there can be quite a lot of things that aren't as good as the rosy picture from the front. And finally, we have extra meetings for all sorts of things, and you've increased the democratic services. I think that was about £23,000 pre-budget increase. I think having more meetings is great, but if we're spending a lot more money having more meetings, I think we need to prioritise and work out what we're doing with that, because council taxpayers will wonder why we're paying all this extra money, so we have more of a talking shop about this or that. It's a balance, I know, but I think in a year when finances are really tight, we should look at maybe phasing it in over 2 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacall. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm not going to speak at length about this, like Councillor Croft tonight. I'll be saving it for Monday. Just needed to say that, really. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Anything that officers wish to come back on? No? Okay. I actually think we have a really exciting programme here to present to residents at full council, which does address the issues before us, which we were elected on as a new administration. We have done a number of things in the past 9 months now, is it, at breakneck speed, and we have accomplished a number of things which are making a difference for residents. And I make no apologies for trying to keep residents in the town centre longer, because if they spend time in the town centre longer, They are spending more money with our local businesses, our markets. They are going for a coffee. They might be going for some lunch. And I think not having to watch the clock and have to rush back to the car is of benefit. And with the investigations, I would just add we wouldn't have to have as many investigations if certain councillors didn't go around calling other councillors Nazis or demanding that they resign their seat on the day they have had a miscarriage. Those sorts of things wouldn't be happening. So I think if those councillors considered their statements more carefully, we wouldn't be having these legal issues in the first place. And I look forward to seeing the proposals on Monday night from both opposition groups to see whether they actually meet what residents wanted at the election that's just gone. So I won't say any more than that because, as Councillor Croft has alluded to, I'm sure there will be far more debate and rancour on Monday night. But I, for one, look forward to it because I believe this administration is actually delivering our priorities and the people's priorities, which were set out so clearly in May 21. So, having said all that, is everyone happy to come to the vote? All those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Golby.
Can I just bring in a point of clarification on the comment about the Green Homes grant? Can I just clarify, I think you were in the room at the time, but did you miss it when I said previously that we had actually got all of the Green Homes money out of the door and it was due to trades not being able to fulfil their end of the bargain that we had to put the money back to government? So to say that we need to increase people's awareness when we've given every penny that we had out is incorrect. And that has been made clear in this room several times while you've been here. So I'm just wondering, did you miss it the first few times that I actually said it?
No, I'm well aware that you said that, and I'm not denying that, but I'm just saying I also know people who've said to me that they knew nothing about it and they would have applied. So therefore people need to be made aware. If they then can't actually get the money, that is a different problem altogether and things, and that is something that you need to, as a ruling group, actually work out with the government and say, we can actually spend this money, please don't take it back from us. Thank you.
You can come back, Councillor Golby, but I'm not going to engage in a to and fro across the chamber.
So as a follow-on from that, and again, I'll clarify that I believe you were in the room at the time when it was said that we would actually be fulfilling the payments that we had made. And again, if we've put all of the money out, which was several hundreds of thousands of pounds, I would argue that actually we are making people aware. Just because it's not the people that you know personally doesn't mean to say that this council is failing. So I'm happy that you've said that you were in the room and that you have clarified that point for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. What I would say is that we are investing additional resource into our comms team, which was described by the Green Councillor as expanding propaganda on his tweets. So we can't be criticised by the Green Councillor's wife on the one hand for not wanting to get information out, and then on the other hand, her husband saying that what we're putting out is propaganda. So we are going to use every tool at our disposal to get that information out, and hopefully once we have the new job recruited to, which is out at the moment for recruitment, I understand, I don't know whether it's actually past its deadline, but we will be using every available method to get the information out so that people can apply for these funds, and we would do that in any event. So can we move on to the vote then, please? All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. So that then moves us on to the housing revenue account, revenue and capital budgets. Councillor Golby.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Croft, I'm not actually going to speak. Safe to say, I will present the item as written and save any comments for the full council, which is the appropriate arena. because it's statements only tonight rather than questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Golby. Does that receive a seconder? Councillor Croft, thank you. I understand we have a statement from Andrew Crichton, which is to be read out by the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. I'm on. Okay. The local housing allowance rates fail to match the private rental market locally, leaving many residents who are unable to work having to dig into their meagre universal credit personal element to cover their rent. Discretionary housing payment can offer a temporary solution to this. Can the portfolio holder for finance confirm what percentage of the DHP budget for this financial year has gone to residents, and what steps the local authority will take to increase the take-up of DHP in the borough? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Brent. As Cabinet is not a position for asking questions per se, can I ask officers to put that down on the agenda for full council as a question from the public? And then it would actually be Councillor Golby to respond to that. It is a valid question, but it's not for this forum. So I think the appropriate method is to defer that one to full council, if Cabinet is happy with that way forward. Okay. You all right with that, Brent?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any non-Cabinet member? Councillor Condacore.
Thank you very much, Chair. The housing revenue budget is always less controversial and quite often has unanimous support across the chamber, because I know we have a very good housing department that's put a lot of work in, and we've got 5,000 odd council houses. So there are a few things that are good at this council, are really good and have supported a lot of people. And we have a very low level, actually, of homelessness compared to some of our neighbours because of the fine work done by this council. However, there are always a few things that we need to look at. And one of the things that's really been concerning both myself and I know Councillor Watkins is the fire safety inspections and the amount of work we need to do on that. And we've repeatedly asked to see the inspection reports for our areas. So I do ask that we actually are more open and share these reports with councillors as soon as possible, just for their areas, you know, not every, and actually so that they can see the works that need to be done and lobby if things need speeding up. The second area is the highways that are actually not adopted by the county. There's been a multi-decade battle to get Cleaver Gardens adopted as county council highways. That still hasn't happened, and it still may never happen. In the meantime, Cleaver Gardens is getting more and more unsafe as each winter the roads and pavements deteriorate, and they're already not up to modern standards in terms of dropped curbs, etc. So I do ask we look to see if there's any money in the budget to actually sort out the massive amount of problems with the highways around Cleaver Gardens, because they're not adopted, they're actually treated as the private estate roads of the housing. And if we don't do something, we're going to have, unfortunately, people falling over on the things. We've already got disability access problems as some of the residents are getting older with more problems. So I say there are two things that I really want to support the housing revenue account, because it is something we do really well generally as a council. But I do think we need to get on top of the fire safety works and the unadopted highways. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condacore. Anything from you, Councillor Watkins? No. Okay, thank you. Anything from officers? No. Anything to come back on? Councillor Golby?
No, it's to come back on directly just to say thank you for all the work, because it's not been easy going. So yes, just thanks to yourself and the team, Craig, for everything.
Okay, thank you very much. Then in which case we shall move to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Again, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. That then moves us on to the Treasury Management Strategy and Budgetary Framework. Councillor Croft.
As previously discussed, Leader, we'll pick it up on Monday, and I move the report as printed. Thank you, Craig.
And I will second that as Leader from the Chair. Any non-Cabinet member? Councillor Condacore.
Thank you, Chair. The Treasury Management Report really highlights how much money we're spending in the borough over the next couple of years. And in many ways, that's really good that we're spending loads of money and investing in all the things going on. But we need to be careful, because we're doubling, effectively, the amount of borrowing we're having, from around 80 million to around £160 million as a council. And that can come, if interest rates rise, with a frightening amount of debt repayment and interest payments. And so I'm really mindful that we need to be careful about projects overrunning and becoming more and more expensive. We've got things like the hotel, the leisure centre, all things you might think are wonderful, but there is not a magic money tree, as you may tell other people. And at the moment, we're loading a lot of this that isn't paid for by government grant onto our council borrowing. So whilst we might get half the cost of the leisure centre from the government, half the cost comes from council taxpayers, not this year, but over many years as we repay that debt. And £180 million is an awful lot of money for a small borough to have as a debt. In some ways, the previous administration, I think, was probably too cautious and didn't invest enough. But we need to be careful now we don't be over extravagant and gold plate stuff. The hotel, for example, is very large. The hotel, the similar design in Stockport, is heavily loss-making, and they wrote down a significant part of the value. I think we do really need to be careful over these big projects, because it ends up coming to Treasury as a borrowing requirement, and then that borrowing requirement does actually end up having to be financed from the council tax indirectly by your minimum payment. Flops. I can't remember the names. Craig's very good at telling us all these things at Treasury Management, but they and we do our finance training. But fundamentally, it's not free money borrowing. It does have to be serviced. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condical. Anything from you, Councillor Watkins?
Again, I'll speak on Monday, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. What I would say on that is, and I'll bring Councillor Croft in a moment, is that is precisely why on the general fund budget we are bringing in a regeneration team who will be overlooking and overseeing project management, which is something that we have been sorely lacking at this authority. And therefore, if Councillor Condical believes it is an issue, which I would agree with him on, then I look forward to him raising his hand for our budget recommendations on Monday night at full council. Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Leader. I was going to echo some of your points, is that we have taken steps in the general fund budget to mitigate our risks on the regeneration programme, which we are well aware of. But I would like to point out that Councillor Condical has just explained in quite useful terms why it's very useful to fund capital spending from capital receipts where possible, because we don't want to be borrowing where we don't have to borrow. Thank you very much, Leader.
Okay, any other member? No, in which case can we move to the vote? All those in favour, please show. Again, that is unanimous, thank you. And then that leads us on to agenda item number 9, which is the local council tax support policy. Councillor Croft.
Again, I move the report as printed. Thank you very much, Leader.
And I will second that from the chair as leader. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Condical.
Thank you, Chair. I've campaigned for many years to get the minimum payment for those under pension age to be reduced. Successfully in the end, so it was 20%. So anyone in this borough who was not pension age that needed help with the council tax would get at least 20%, and then it became 15% under the, I think it was about 2 years ago they dropped it. But it is still an unfair system, because different councils obviously have better or worse financial incomes. I think at one point Coventry and Stratford, some of them had a 0 minimum. And so it is important to keep looking at this and looking if we can get that 15% minimum payment down, because this is the people who are having problems with the energy bills, all sorts of other bills at the moment. They've had their cut back of universal credit. And the more we can do to ensure this support is as high as we can afford it to be, the better. So I'm not going to argue that you need to reduce to 15% this year, because obviously there's so much uncertainty. But I do ask that you actually have another review of this during this year to see if the 15% minimum help can actually, 15% minimum payment is 85% minimum help, can be increased to as close to 100% help as we can get, if we can afford it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Condical. No, Councillor Watkins. Any cabinet member? No? In which case we'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That moves us on to recommendations from overview and scrutiny. There are none that I am aware of, and there are no other items that have been brought to my attention, so I shall thank everyone for their attendance and declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.